Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another brand new episode of System Link, our joint podcast and gameplay stream. And as always, I'm joined by my legendary co-host, Mike Hazelton from the Xbox Guide. Good evening, Mike. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Legendary. That's
right. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. I'm happy with that.
High stakes. Yeah. I've also been trying to reconfigure my intros because we talk about this off air a lot, where we have stock phrasing, things that just come naturally to us when we're talking.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's tough, especially when you then go back and look at some clips from the VOD and you can see how many times I've used the word leverage in a conversation. Or there's another good one. Normally when I'm doing an introduction, often on podcasts, if I'm hosting something, the supremely talented, something like that. I always hit my guest with that at some point. So trying to mix up my vocab as we go into this latest episode. Mike, we can't be far off episode 20, right?
Yeah, I know what we're going to do for that. Some sort of giveaway.
Whoa! You're spending the budget that
Early
doesn't
bird
exist.
Arcade, unlimited card.
Unlimited pass, yeah, just giving them out, left, right and centre. Well, let's dive in. We've got our brief headlines we're going to be talking about tonight, and then our deep dive for this episode will be on the latest digital versus physical data reporting. Really interesting. I think that's going to spark quite a engaging conversation between the two of us, particularly in terms of our preferences and what we're currently buying games, and if that's potentially different depending on the platform we're talking about as well. I think there's a lot to dig in there. We'll also be playing some more of the finals this evening. Mike and I decided we wanted to get back to some of our more classic FPS gameplay, so we're going to be doing that as well. Kicking things off, really funny one actually, given you can see in our planning document, we discussed this when we're prepping our episodes. We always discuss sort of how we're going to word it in our headlines. And the first one is a quote from Aaron Greenberg, who apparently was overheard at an event recently, talking about how no one knows Banjo-Kazooie, no one cares. Subsequent to that, there's always been rumors circling about whether Microsoft are going to do something with that franchise, and then within it must have been like 48 hours. It was the announcement from Nintendo that Banjo-Tooie is coming to the Switch Online
Yeah.
service at the end of the month, October 25th, I think, something like that. Um, just really funny to me, this story, but it also definitely highlighted a bit of a blind spot where Microsoft is concerned, which is that people do love these IP. They're sitting on a huge selection of first-party studios. Give this to it. If Rare aren't going to do it, give it to a team. People want it. People want a remake. I mean, that's something actually I wanted to ask you. What is best case scenario for Banjo? Is it let it die? It's not going to top those first two games because we don't talk about nuts and bolts. Do we want to see a remake? Do we want to see a sequel, or all of the above? You know, what's your take on that?
I think it needs a new game in the series. I don't. For me, the Kazooie and Tui are still playable. I still enjoy playing through them. I don't
Yeah.
need a remake of them particularly. Um, I think probably if you're new to the series, you'd say they haven't. They're not playable. But I think if you know them for what they were when they were around, they're still great fun to play, and I wouldn't want them to kind of. I don't know. We've seen some good remakes of like platformer adventure games, but I just don't think it's necessary. So I'd prefer to see something new done, but in the same sort of mold, without trying to do anything crazy like they did with Nuts and Bolts.
Mm.
Um, Ukulele was fine in terms of copying the mechanics. The level design was pretty good. The characters were pretty good. The atmosphere felt like Banjo. It was just missing something that I think probably maybe need more people from the original team involved
Mm.
to recapture. But
Which then
that
becomes
that kind
tricky
of
if.
thing would have been fun.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think it does become tricky, doesn't it, when Rare seem disinterested, and most likely most of those original developers are no longer there. So if anything, you would need another studio to jump in and take that on. I hope we see it again. I hope Banjo isn't just lost to time. I know for me, I could definitely eat up a Crash Bandicoot style collection. Just do the first two games, remaster them, ignore nuts and bolts because dreadful.
Remaster or remake?
Just
Because I feel like the rare replay version's pretty sharp. I
yeah,
don't
and
know
it runs Tui
how much
particularly, which
better you
ran
need it.
yeah, which ran poorly on the N64. That people didn't have the expansion card to put in there, made it run very poorly. But the Xbox Live Arcade version, and obviously, like you said, the Rare Replay edition, very well ported. It's extremely smooth, and I guess I don't know whether we need. I suppose if you're gonna do it, it'd be pointless if you didn't do a sort of a bit more of a fundamental remake. I think if it was just another up-resed version, I think that would be redundant. So yeah, I'd love to see that as a way in and a great way, a bit like they've done with Beyond Good and Evil. They've celebrated the 20th anniversary by having that remaster come out and potentially just bridging the gap between the new one. They added in some story elements too, which I think that could be quite interesting. Trying if they were working on a new game, if they try to tie in some Easter eggs and characters like Ubisoft did with Beyond Good and Evil, I thought that might be quite a nice way to handle that. I agree, though. I think it would be remake territory that would be more interesting than having just another remaster.
Were they making a standard third game originally? I seem to remember for
There
Nintendo, and then it,
was, yes, there was, and possibly for the GameCube before the buyout. And then there was sort of various versions of what Nuts and Bolts was. Rare did talk about how that was originally a sort of, what you would call Banjo 3. That was the joke at the end of 2E, that they weren't making that traditional platformer. That was something that was on the cards, but they must have just, I don't know, went in a different creative direction, got bored. Yeah, got bored with making it, whatever. But yeah, so yeah,
there must be some content around from Banjo 3 that they could probably work into something new, or like you say, add, do some sort of addition to TUI. I yeah, like a remake kind of makes sense because then they can test the waters to see if there's enough demand for a new game. But I think it would have to be a pretty small team working on it. I can't see
yeah,
Microsoft signing off on anything big. But Phil hinted at it recently, and I think Aaron Greenberg was being sarcastic. He didn't outright say it. I think someone on Twitter was like, "Oh, I'm sure he was being sarcastic," and then Aaron Greenberg was like, "Yeah," because you just would never say that. Especially you're like head of Xbox PR, which I think he is, or has been in the past, and to say no one cares about Banjo when you know full well that people do
a
is
lot of
just
people do. Yeah,
ludicrous.
precisely.
So I think It's just people trying to start a war on Twitter, probably.
As always, well, you've got me into Threads, something we're both now on. Please follow us now at Burly Media, at Xbox Guide, the Xbox Guide. So sorry, but
I'm sure you'll find it.
yeah, it's there. And generally speaking, I've had some very wholesome interactions. I'm hoping to be able to spread some banjo love over there. That would be the dream, I think. So another interesting story that we wanted to get to tonight was the announcement of Spider-Man 2 coming to PC early next year. A much shorter turnaround, the shortest actually, from their single-player titles originally releasing on console to PC. We've seen day and date releases for multiplayer titles like Helldivers, which is to be expected. They want a bigger audience for that. But so far, they've been pretty conservative with their single-player ports. They've kept a lot of those games for PlayStation, consoles, PS4, PS5, or both. So this definitely is a faster turnaround. Now, whether that's a case of them looking at the sales of Spider-Man 2, which obviously sold incredibly well, but potentially has peaked. They're looking at trying to sneak in a win for the fiscal year. So then they get it in January before the reporting's done in March. I do wonder, though, if it does speak to a broader attempt to narrow that gap. Maybe they're just looking, this is the case of them looking at data that we don't have and recognizing a trend where Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us, God of War have performed well enough on PC to justify a shorter turnaround, while still preserving some element of exclusivity for their console audience. Do you think this is a shift, or is it perhaps just an edge case?
Maybe it's to do with the console base. Like, the deeper you get into the generation, I feel like it makes sense to shorten the window between console and PC, just because you'll know when the sales for console, the console software's tapering off, and you're not going to get the many people buying consoles at this stage of the lifespan for something like Spider-Man 2. So, but earlier in the life cycle, I think it would be more common that people are, thinking, I really want Spider-Man 2, I'm going to get PS5 to play it. But I expect, like you said, they've got the data now that's going to be a rarity, but there's still that untapped audience on PC. So it'd be interesting to see if it's people like to think that Sony are going to go the same way as Microsoft with day and date on PC, but just I don't know. I don't think we can say that at this point for their single player stuff. They did. I think they have said that they're not doing any DLC, which was rumored for Spider-Man 2, which is a bit of a shame because I think there were people kind of holding on for that. But
as the first game had quite a substantial amount of support as well, so there might be an expectation that Insomniac would do something with that. But off the back of that, former PlayStation exec Sean Layden interviewed recently where he mentioned he felt that the AAA industry was suffering from a collapse of creativity. He also mentioned an interesting quote, actually, I pulled out of the article, where he said that AA is essentially dead. The notion of sort of those mid-tier games, indie games, and AAA games having such now specific and perhaps higher expectations, somewhat unfairly, I think, certainly on the indie side, given their restricted budgets and smaller team sizes. But there is a sort of broader expectation after some, back-to-back Game of the Year winning indie darlings versus, say, sort of we're talking the hundreds of millions of dollars that it's taking to produce the Assassin's Creeds and the Last of Us's and those kind of experiences, that his concern was, quote, there was a collapse of creativity in the industry, particularly in that space. And I wonder if that's partially in response to looking at sales numbers, how, they haven't, both PlayStation and Xbox haven't massively converted their previous gen audiences to the new consoles. They've still sold incredibly well, but it feels like it's plateaued. We talked about this before, sort of an element of them sort of reaching a critical point where things like mobile gaming and services are going to be the things that are the differentiators moving forward. How that necessarily affects design, I don't know. He mentioned as well in the article about how there seems to be this reliance on the monetization and the business model side of development more so than the creative side. He said as well, if anyone came to me with a pitch saying, this is how I'd sell the game in the first 2 pages, he would immediately disregard it, if there was someone pitching him a title like that. So I think it's a very interesting perspective, and I think we've seen enough high-profile studio closures and big releases struggling to find a broader audience that, despite their budget and promotion, aren't necessarily connecting. And I wondered then, therefore, and this is kind of what I wanted to put to you, is that sort of a sequel and franchise apathy that's happened, or are things like those sort of the big free to play games that are absorbing everyone's time? We've seen those top 10 lists. Do we think that maybe there's been so many high profile successes that are continuing to succeed that it's now harder and harder to break through that ceiling, potentially?
Yeah, it's a good question. First, I don't know how much I would believe much of what Sean Layden's saying, just given that I think now his job is advisor to Tencent, basically, who are partially responsible for some of the stuff that he's talking about. Not to the extent of Embracer, but like if you're going down the list of companies, they're probably pretty high up. I think at PlayStation he was pretty good in terms of fostering like a creative environment, but I don't think it's fair to say that AA is dead for sure. There's certainly some games that are not £100 million titles that are coming out, and they're succeeding, and they're bigger than indie titles. And I think you obviously get indie studios that also grow from being indies because they've had a success. Not everyone kind of wants that, and some people stay as like pretty independent studios.
Yeah, there's some that evolve out of that indie space, right? But also look at like where Devolver and Focus are. I think they're two of the bigger. I'd put them in the AA bracket. I think Devolver certainly makes more indie games, but I think they're more prevalent, say, as a studio, as a publishing house. So I'd kind of count them in that AA space in terms of budget and marketing reach. So I agree with you. I think there is certainly been evidence of ongoing success there, and maybe perhaps not as broadly as we'd see sort of like, we'd see one-off titles back in the sort of 360 days where, they'd try an IP. It wouldn't necessarily be sort of blossomed into a franchise, but we would see perhaps a bit more. He framed it in relation to risk, right? That there's less risk-taking happening. So maybe there isn't necessarily a death of that. I think he's conflated those two things a bit. There's not necessarily a death of that budget and that ambition, but there might be sort of studios becoming a bit more risk-averse, which actually kind of ties in with something we were going to talk about tonight. We might as well, this is a good segue. The rumours of what Ubisoft Montpellier have done with Prince of Persia, the Lost Crowns team. That they've essentially been either disbanded or reassigned elsewhere because it didn't meet sales targets. Very disappointing to hear that for me. I really like the game. I'm sorry, I completely cut our audio for no reason. That was incredibly rude. It's fantastic. And it's exactly what I wanted from a reboot of Prince of Persia. My history with the series was the trilogy on the GameCube: Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones. They were great games, but they were 3D. So I didn't have the Prince of Persia 2D affection that people would have grown up on it with. And I came to this fairly, low stakes. I wasn't sure quite how it was going to land. I loved it. It was great. And
did it feel like Prince of Persia?
Yes.
Like what of Prince of Persia, the 3D ones.
Because of some of the other mechanics within it, especially some of the sort of time manipulation stuff, and the pace of the combat definitely connected with me in that sense. It's just a shame, I think. I know that part of the rumor around this was that that team was being retained, but sort of now funneled into Beyond Good and Evil 2. At least that was the rumor that was going around this. I don't know how much to believe there, given how long Beyond Good and Evil 2 has been in development, and if they're now just ramping up development, that game is still a lot further away than we think. I
think it was Insider Gaming possibly that was saying they might be working on Rayman instead, which makes more sense. I think a new Rayman game. Obviously given the
especially
genres.
That team as well, because they made Origins and Legends. So.
So I mean, we talk about Ubisoft every week, and I don't know if they've commented on how well this did, but it's like we said before, worrying times for them, and I think the point on Sean Layden about monetization and stuff, and also your point about free to play games. Those games are doing so well. I think there's a significant pool of developers and publishers that think they have to try to compete, and they have to try to make it either a free to play game or a game that's got like live service elements that you basically have to monetize. That's
Mm.
the business model for those games. I don't think you realistically see many developers now making a double A game that's like single player with monetization or something. It would just
No.
I don't know how that would just be completely out of place now. We had it, maybe a decade ago, but um, I think part of the Call of Duty and the FIFA audience, the people that just bought those two games every year, are mainly the audience that are playing the free to play games
Playing
religiously.
Minecraft, they're playing Fortnite, they're playing Warzone. Yeah.
Yeah, or like
Yeah.
younger versions of those people that have come through. I don't think the people that were playing broad swathes of games are the people that are just playing Fortnite
I agree.
all day, every day. And like it's nothing wrong with Fortnite. We play Rocket League every single time we play. We play for like an hour a session of Rocket League. So
Mm.
same, the same thing. Um, but I think there is an issue definitely with the industry because you see it in the top charts where people are staying on those games and they're not playing other stuff, which is the issue. And I think that's more of a problem than what Sean Layden's talking about
Hmm.
with double A. For me, we see enough double A games. There was certainly a period on Xbox 360 when we got loads of them, but
Mm.
I also think a lot of them didn't do very well. Maybe just development was a bit cheaper, so it didn't matter
Yeah,
so much.
and,
But
and that's not a new problem, is it? Teams stretching their budgets to try and compete in a very competitive space, maybe pushing the scope of a title beyond what they're capable of delivering with the resources they have. That's not a new problem. That's something that continues to persist, and if anything, has become more prevalent of an issue as incredible small indie titles break through. And there's almost that expectation of like the sophomore slump, like how are you going to follow up what you've just done there?
yeah,
How are you going to scale up appropriately? Look at Hello Games, No Man's Sky. After that disastrous launch and what they've then subsequently turned around, their next game apparently now is a entire world with a shared space. And it's I do worry about teams like that pushing themselves to the brink. That gets into obviously the weeds of things like bonus time and crunch and all of those elements. But it does make you wonder when you put those aspects alongside, are just executives just really poorly expecting too much of these games and just essentially throwing money at the wall thinking that's what's going to solve the problem? It's a really tough thing to sort of pin down to one element. I think it's not a simple conversation for sure.
yeah, I think there's game. I don't know how many people worked on that Prince of Persia game, but I think there's some games where you hear about the budget for it, and it's like, how the hell? Like Concord, I suppose, but
Yeah.
but there's smaller examples that end up costing a lot of money, and you think, how the hell did it cost that much?
Mm.
I think a good example is Hazelight, where that you can see kind of the progression of that studio from
Mm-hmm.
starting out with like Brothers, which was obviously an indie, quite a straightforward indie game, and they've moved through now to It Takes Two, which was probably I don't want to imagine a budget for it, but it still wasn't. I don't know if you'd call it AAA. Still, it was.
No.
It still had that kind of relatively small
Mm-hmm.
scope feel about it, but it was still a step up from their previous game, which was a step up from the previous game, and that's kind of the healthy growth that you need to see in these studios, as
Really.
opposed to
Yeah.
you make
Yeah.
like a 2D indie game and then you make like a ridiculous
Now
AAA
you're making an open
thing.
world game, and you sort of go, well, just
Yeah,
scale back. And but then that seems to me that's down to management. How many times have we seen and discussed at length poor decision making by the former 343 studios, now Halo studios, with the way they handle Halo, and that's at the top end. That's where the budget is probably
well, and
infinite. But yeah,
and
it's it does make you wonder how much of those decisions are coming down from upper management, expecting too much of their teams and not giving the appropriate resources to deliver the vision they're expecting them to.
well,
Um,
and you see it in like you'll know the name, that the FPS studio that PlayStation were like put together, like a crack team of FPS
Deviation,
ex.
yeah,
Yeah, and they were basically throwing money at it. Just to say, like, we're creating a AAA studio from the ground up. With
yeah,
fair enough, you've got a few people, or maybe more than a few people that have good experience in the genre, but you can't just throw money at it without. I, I just don't like seeing studios built like that, built from scratch. Give them loads of money. Microsoft are guilty of it as well, and I think it will come back to bite
hmm
them. Because there's a couple of new studios that they've kind of done the same thing with. I prefer to see it like a splinter team from an existing studio. Like you set up a new whatever arcane studio in a new city or in the same city, just a different office. And I think that's a more healthy way to grow
Organically too,
Yeah,
which is, and like you, I'm glad you mentioned Hazelight, because I do feel like their trajectory from Brothers to A Way Out to It Takes Two fits that, what I think would be an ideal model. They've retained independence, they've had investment from EA, they've had creative license to make the game they wanted to make, and the sales success they allowed their game to cook. They made some disruptive decisions, things like the friend pass to make it accessible. Just great planning and decision making. Here's our game, it is feature complete, there is no season pass, no DLC. Let's now put it out there. And they found an audience that were hungry for that. And unfortunately, then, the one that really frustrated me was Warner Brothers. The Hogwarts Legacy has blown up in a way that I don't think they could have ever predicted. Suicide Squad was a complete abject failure in every sense. Rocksteady completely missing the mark there after, a series of really successful single-player only games. For then Warner Brothers to come out and say, we're really going to double down on live service, when you've got
crazy,
Hogwarts,
yeah.
a non-live service game, stacked up against one that completely failed to achieve its even marginally what it set out to achieve. You just can't help but question the logic there, that if it is just, game design by committee seems to be the thing that's failing continuously. And how many times have we either covered it on our website or talked about it on here? Studios closing, mass layoffs, budgets being cut, titles being cancelled. It's happening again and again. It's a grim time for the industry right now, and for all of those reasons. And I do think in some way Sean Layden does have a point. I think there is the fear of taking risks is what has ended up putting teams in these boxes where so much expectation is put on a single title, and they just can't possibly deliver in a market that has got its more choice about where to play and what to play than ever before. So there's no simple answer. There's no simple reason for all of these things happening. But I think every element we've kind of discussed there, I certainly think is a factor in that very complex equation.
Yeah, totally. And I think COVID was part of the problem because studios just have money thrown at them, like almost regardless of what they were working on. It's like, here's another 200 staff to help you with your game.
Yeah.
And it's like, then the game doesn't make enough money because they've suddenly had a load of extra expense, and now they're obviously studios are cutting back. But I also think the expectation of, the size that teams need to make these games is over the top. And maybe they're used to just working with more people and trying to get these games out the door more quickly. And I know games are taking longer than ever to develop, but I think, like we said, it needs to just be a return to the kind of gradual evolution, and not running before you can walk.
Yeah, and responding to the market too in a way that's not chasing trends, but looking at gaps. That seems to be the misnomer, doesn't it? Is that they're seeing that Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft and FIFA are in the top 10, and Apex and Warzone are in there, so they go, okay, well, let's make one of those then. That seems to be the mistake, is that actually when you've got so much choice covered in that one area, don't then just it's so difficult to carve that niche for yourself, to carve that little corner. The finals, we're going to be playing it tonight. We saw before season 3, currently in season 4 now, but we saw before season 3 publisher Nexon saying that it's underperforming slightly in terms of expectations, but that is a fundamentally and mechanically outstanding game that clearly still has an audience. I mean, I always tend to judge these things by matchmaking times. When player numbers are obscured on console platforms and you're just relying on Steam numbers. If I can get into a game in under a minute, your game's doing all right. That's never been an issue for us there. So there is clearly a player base. They're talking about future seasons. They've obviously got 4 now done so far. But if a game like that, where the quality isn't the issue, but they're still struggling to find an audience, that just shows you how saturated that market is. And I don't think you could accuse the finals of not being taking risks or trying to push the boundaries with something, with its tech and its design. So not an easy conversation to have, for sure. In mixed news, we also had the Xbox Partner Showcase. So speaking of obviously third-party titles, we had it was an interesting showcase. I think there was a couple of real highlights for me in there, which we'll get to, but one or two that completely missed the mark for me. And I'm curious. We haven't actually talked about this deliberately. We've kind of saved it for System Link, so I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. I thought I'd get this out of the way first, just because I've actually completed it. This is the Alan Wake to the Lake House DLC, which dropped on Tuesday this week. I have absolutely smashed through that with my wife. We've completed it already. It's only about 3 hours long, 2.5, 3 hours long, so it's not a massive experience. But, oh, Doctor, did I have a great time with it. The first DLC was a very irreverent, very self-referential experience. It was very tongue-in-cheek as well. They were kind of poking fun at some of the tropes of Alan Wake. It was designed clearly to be a bit throwaway. This very much feels not only like a bridge to Control 2, but slots in nicely with Alan Wake 2's refocus on survival horror. And loved every second of it. Really atmospheric. It took place actually concurrently with the main storyline, so you didn't actually have to have completed Alan Wake 2 to play into this. It tied in a lot with Control as well, so you could use this as kind of like it's almost like a side story that's happening alongside the events of the main campaign. Had an absolute blast with this. Had a really nice arc in it too, where like you really struggle for resources, like a lot of survival horror games. You really have to fight against the odds. And then in the last third, you're introduced to a new weapon that just blows the biscuits off an enemy that keeps haunting you. A very sort of Nemesis-style following enemy that just tracks you and comes out of it. You're walking through this area, and it will come out of a painting at you. It just sort of but all the paintings look like an outline of the creature, so you never quite know which one it's going to spawn from and come out at you. And then you get this weapon that's tied in with Control that just eviscerates it. So there's a really nice, a very classic survival horror Resident Evil arc to it. Totally felt worth it as well. It's only part of the deluxe edition, so it's part of that upgrade package, but had an absolute blast with this. It showed well. The fact that, again, they turned around from gameplay revealed to release. It was only a week's difference between the partner showcase and this dropping yesterday. I've had an absolute blast with it. Roll on Control 2. Can't wait.
Nice.
So that, just wanted to sneak my impressions in there. I'll do a full write-up on Burly Bird Media's website, but that is just kind of my initial thoughts on that. I had an absolutely great time with it. Completely opposite end of the spectrum for me, so this is one where I'm very curious to get your thoughts on this, was Blindfire. I think the premise is really interesting, very similar to Midnight Murder Club, which is the next game from VLAN Studios, in that you're fighting in the dark and that's a central mechanic. But man, was this a shit trailer. I hated this trailer so much.
I saw the concept.
Yeah.
I read about the concept before I watched the trailer, and I thought that sounds like such a good idea, but how can it possibly work? And this, I just can't see how this.
No,
is going to be fun.
Nor could you from this trailer, which overlaid a fake HUD, and it was sort of, it's not gameplay at all, because the camera's too directed. It's sort of meant to evoke gameplay, like a good CG trailer should, I suppose, but it didn't do, I think, a good enough job of, like, it just, the way it was cut, the sort of the focus of those elements, the character design could not look more generic either. It just looks really, really sort of, almost like it was just sort of copied and pasted from Watch Dogs, just sort of taken from that. Thought it had nothing really to differentiate. It just wasn't a good trailer for me. I think this really fell flat. So I hope we see some genuine gameplay, and it's sort of maybe its over-reliance on this CG facsimile was just a misstep. And
you think this is complete CG? I
do, yeah. I don't think there's any element of gameplay in that at all. Just the way the camera's moving and the way the gun's aimed, the way the characters fall. I mean, that's not gameplay. I think it's evoking the mechanics, like you say, like a CG trailer should. But passing it off as sort of a trying to be gameplay, I just think is.
It looks in engine to me. Like I think it could. Everything could be gameplay, except they've manufactured the camera panning and the gun movement slightly. But I mean, it doesn't. For me, it doesn't change that. It just doesn't look great.
Yeah. I think
it's one of those. This would have to have a demo or a beta or something,
yes.
and the gameplay would have to sell it, because it's not being sold by the trailer.
No, it's a bad trailer, and that's the thing, was if you show me gameplay of this where the premise is being explored, like the shot where like they showed the big shadow on the wall, just isn't just it's not what it's going to look like. It's just not how it's going to appear. So I'm very, very tepid on this one. I am unconvinced based on what they've shown so far. Now flip flopping, as certain executives might. We have Kronos from Bloober Team. I thought this was an amazing trailer. Again, CG, so I'm gonna leverage the same criticism in some senses. You know, we didn't see any gameplay here, but I do think this did a really good job of selling the atmosphere and also evoking the kind of gameplay to expect with a slightly mysterious element to it as well. Gave me actually Bioshock vibes in a weird way. Don't know whether that was just the suit design or the cut back and forth to the chest with the bloody hands. Really cool to see Bloober being given the opportunity to work on a new IP. And one thing I want to say on this, though, is that I saw a very sort of Peter Molyneux-esque quote from them, which was like...
I was going to bring this up.
Yeah, where they were like, we're not going to make shit games anymore. And sort of shitting on their previous titles, which was a really odd perspective, I think, to have. Given the fact that they're just obviously now flying high on the Silent Hill remake. Just seems like, what, you're now taking it seriously? That's just a very strange PR decision there. Kind of soured this a little bit for me. But in terms of the direction of the trailer and the indications of what we can expect from gameplay, I think this really hit for me. This looks really cool.
Yeah, looks great. And I think Bloober Team are one that I don't know. Like, I think they fucked up a bit with Layers of Fear sequel, but
and the Medium.
They've grown quite nicely and quite steadily.
Mm-hmm.
The Medium was maybe they jumped a bit
a bit quick,
faster than they should have. But I think given the job they've done with Silent Hill,
yes,
I'm really looking forward to this as a next step for them.
Yeah, for sure. If the Medium was the stepping stone to get to Silent Hill, then this is a logical progression in a very Haze-like fashion, I think. So
I think the Medium looked from the trailers as though it should be a AAA experience that this looks like from the trailers, but it wasn't. It was a bit ropey.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about Bloober Team last week off the back of Silent Hill and saying were they going to do another kind of remake or something, or are they going to get their own IP? So it's really nice to see to have that answer so quickly.
Just any time as well that a team like that's proven their worth by either revisiting an existing IP, a ground up remake, or creating some kind of sequel to something we're already familiar with, them being given the chance to then stretch their legs on something fresh is just always cool to see. So I'm always on board with it. I'm always like, I clamour for new IP. It's something I'm always hungry to try. And if they're given a shot to do that can only be a good thing. Finally, the sort of final highlight from this, from the partner preview, not an exhaustive list by any means, but was another Remedy title, bookended, answering our speculation about whether we were going to see an Alan Wake Remastered appear on Game Pass, or even Alan Wake 2 to support the DLC, was the FBC Firebreak, a first-person co-op game is their first multiplayer title, set in the Control universe, a sort of a PvE experience. Really cool. I hope this is a budget price title. It kind of I'm hoping sort of for a Helldivers 2 style pricing model for this, and it's coming to Game Pass as well day one, which is perfect for a co-op game like this. They've really lent into the sort of the unique style of Control, of the very sort of hyper detailed office buildings. I didn't like the character models particularly. I thought they looked really generic, but the enemy types and the level design very much fit within the Control universe, and I'm very excited to see how this pans out. Some of the slightly crazier looking weapons as well, which is really cool to see, because Control indulged some wacky design in that title. So totally fits with the universe they've set it in.
It would be interesting to know how... it's due out next year, isn't it? It looks quite ropey to me. Ropey in terms of graphically poor. But, I imagine they're prioritizing performance. And maybe there's going to be a lot of enemies on screen as well. I could see it being fun, for sure. The gameplay looks fun. It's one of those, again, that we probably have to play. I don't think the trailer sells it well. And it's coming to PlayStation Plus as well. So there's obviously they're hoping to get high player numbers, which I think is realistic. Yeah,
a great way, I think, as well, to keep people talking about that universe, because Control 2 I would anticipate being either late next year or 26. possibly as a cross-gen release, depending on where the major platform holders go. So this is a really nice way for Remedy to have a title out there, being seen in their universe, obviously off the back of this Alan Wake 2 DLC, which was very, very much tied in with Control as well. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing more from that. I do think, though, even though it does look early, I agree with you with that. I think some of the shooting perhaps look a little bit stiff. You instantly got a flavour of what that game was, which is where I think Blind Fire let itself down. It doesn't really work. Plogsocket, good evening. Coming at you from 2 hours in the future. Oh, jolly. So either you've developed a TARDIS, you're on holiday. There you go. Thank you. I'm in Crete. So, good to see you, man. Thank you so much for jumping on. So, moving ahead now to something that I wrote an article about on Burly Bird Media, the Analog 3D, which is a retro console being developed by Analog, designed to essentially give you complete access to your N64 library. Both cartridges, the controllers, all work as standard in the console, but it supports 4K output. You can suspend the games, you can take screenshots, you can have them have save states. It's got a built-in expansion pack, which is great. Really looking forward to this. It was only a very brief thing I just wanted to mention tonight. I thought that as someone who's really into retro gaming, I am kind of counting down to when my hardware fails. So to have something that works on my current monitors or TVs that could be a one-stop solution, I think is really, really exciting. It looks fantastic. Very expensive, but if you're it's targeted at those enthusiast, dedicated retro gamers, and I think that's definitely going to find a market for sure. They've had a Game Boy equivalent and a Sega equivalent as well, so just the next in hopefully a long line of retro game preservation from them.
Yeah, I'm surprised Nintendo haven't done it. I mean, obviously they want to sell the digital versions on the, or get you to do the membership. I think as they get more and more modern, these consoles, Nintendo 64. You said to me like the GameCube one you would definitely buy.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's like 300 quid for a GameCube that's like 4K output and plays all the games and runs a controller. So for me that's not a bad price. I don't actually think the price is that bad for an N64 because they're quite expensive to buy now.
Yeah.
And you don't know what condition it's going to be in, and the controllers are a bit shit because of the cables and it. I would prefer Nintendo to do one where you could have the games digitally if you wanted to, but
which was always
I've got loads of N64 games.
Yeah, it was always supposed to be.
You want the choice
console, wasn't it?
of doing either. Yeah. But I know, so it's great, and I don't know how realistic it is for the price to come down of these things. Like, I'd love to have the Game Boy one, just I can't justify it. But this one, I'll keep an eye on the price if the price ever is able to come down. The problem is when they're making such bespoke hardware for this one purpose, it's hard to see it ever getting cheap enough to really be.
And
like
if it is, it would be like a 10% saving for a holiday or something. It would be something small. It's just I agree with you though. I think given its feature set, the fact that it supports Bluetooth controllers, so you could technically put the N64 Bluetooth controller that Nintendo put out and it would work on this. And also they've designed we call the 8-bit 64 controller, which uses the buttons mapped to the same size, but it redoes the sticks. Great design choices. They just seem to be hitting every note with this thing. The fact that the thing that is the most has the best survivability, which is the cartridges. The cartridges themselves are built to last longer, I think, than the hardware. That seems to be the general sentiment. I have all of my original N64 cartridges that could just slot straight in. And that they also tend to be the very expensive thing to rebuy, if you're trying to get those, going forward. But interesting, actually, I hadn't considered that the hardware now it'd be more expensive to pick up, just given the distance of time, right? That's only going to go up in price as more of them start to fail, and those that haven't become then a greater value to people.
I think not so bad if you're just replacing the console, but if like you've sold your N64 years ago or something, and you think, I want to, did I rebuy it? Did you rebuy your original Xbox? An original Xbox, or had you kept it?
No, I kept mine.
Okay, yeah. So like that, if you have sold some of your retro consoles and you want to rebuy them, to get the whole package can be quite expensive. I think maybe if you're just buying your N64 breaks and you just have to replace the console, it's not so bad. But This is a great way to kind of get back in. But
I
yeah, I
agree.
mean, buying the cartridges would be crippling on top of
Well,
the.
yeah, a plug socket mentioning in chat there. Kirby 64 is insane. It's typically £100+ if you're picking it up on the pre-owned market. So very very tough to justify for a lot of people. That's a really high barrier of entry there. But I think in broader terms, what Analog are doing for game preservation, I think, is remarkable, and it is the solution besides just playing them on the old hardware. To have them be so up to date and making them in a way that just preserves the experience. There's filters that they include in there, which include CRT color grading, which means it would look and play. It's region free as well, I should say. So my American copy of Majora's Mask that I picked up when I was in New York about 10 years ago, I could now finally play it without an adapter. Region free, supporting Bluetooth, and no latency at all. They play exactly as they were on native
Yeah,
hardware. It's remarkable what they've done.
yeah, that's the key thing. Is it's not
Compromised.
like a PC in a box where you're emulating
No.
the game. Like it reads the cartridge and then emulates the game or
Yes.
something. It's as good as buying an
N64.
original N64.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The version that you'd want, I think, if you were given an opportunity to do this. So just thrilled to see that that's out there, and just wanted to give that a quick shout out tonight on the pod.
Get it in the arcade.
Oh, such a good idea. Why didn't I even think of that? Getting that as like a premium thing on the projector screen, because I've got the 4K
Yeah.
projector down there. Oh, Doctor. Thank you very much for that. I'm going to...
Have to tether the cartridges
Oh my
somehow.
god, I'd put that in a prison. I'd put that in a jail cell. But yes, fantastic idea, because also the wireless aspect of it too, so you wouldn't have any trip hazards. Cooking on gas tonight on System Link. So let me tell you something that isn't cooking on gas, Mike, and that's Sea of Thieves Season 14.
Oh man.
Which, good lord, from what I read on Eurogamer earlier today, they've completely walked back all but like 2 of the features of the new season, because apparently it was just broken. It was it was causing it was apparently bringing exploits back from the competitive multiplayer that they'd removed from having removed that mode.
Yeah.
Sort of causing people to
Shocking.
be invincible, and infinite the crouching glitch or something. Sea of Bugs,
I mean,
plug socket wittily put into the chat there. So
very good.
very
They-
very
they-
good.
So, so it's a very ambitious season by
Mm.
their standards, because it was adding maybe not new content so much, but there's like a grappling hook to get onto ships and like up cliffs and things. There's crouching. You can hide in barrels, like stealth elements. You can hang onto ledges on the side of ships and kind of shimmy along. So there's all this stuff that they've not encouraged before. And we've, again, it might have been last week or certainly recently, we've talked about how they said, we won't have AI ships in the game. It's not what we want the game to be. And they didn't want to fix the combat, which has been janky since day one, because that's kind of, they wanted it to be that way. And now they're adding in, completely new elements,
Mantling,
kind of
stealth elements, and
redefining the combat.
Yeah.
And then, which I don't know if I'm on board with, to be honest. The some stuff, I just don't think it's. For me, it's easy enough for people to swim to your ship, climb on, and blow it up without you seeing them, without them adding like grappling hooks and like ledge climbing. And the fact they've kind of completely botched the update is really concerning, considering Rare have obviously had a lot of investment in like increasing their team size, and for like a live service game, they've generally done a really good job of Sea of Thieves since it launched. Basically, it didn't launch that well, but improving it. This is like a rookie error for a live service game.
And I
to release an update and then walk it back.
Well, yeah, and I saw a quote. It was in the Eurogamer coverage of this, where the game director the way it read, it was sort of like they were surprised that was what the update was like.
I know.
So, well, how can you possibly not have QA'd this? In a way that this cannot be something you discovered in a live environment. These are fundamental mechanics that aren't relying necessarily on the internet connection. It's not server infrastructure that was the issue. It was the actual design of these new new moves, you know. So it's just,
yeah,
bizarre, really strange.
The statement wasn't that apologetic either. It was kind of like, I don't know, like we're doing it to protect everyone from exploits that we didn't anticipate and stuff, rather than saying like, we're sorry, you were looking forward to all this great stuff and you're not going to be able to use it. Which I didn't like too much. For me, the whole point, or the whole kind of victory for Sea of Thieves, was that Rare had pioneered this new, for Xbox, new model of putting something out in beta, iterating it, having a community involved every step of the way. I mean, to a large extent, they ignored some of the things the community were asking for, but to then have this, that they have, they obviously haven't sent us out to the community to play test it properly. Maybe it was only played internally, or they've obviously dropped the ball there with not sharing it widely enough before it went out. So yeah, you wonder if it's the multi-format aspect as they're struggling with, because that's got to be,
it was a simultaneous release, wasn't it?
With this stuff.
It wasn't. They said that now it's parity across the platforms. So yeah, it was an odd one, and I think again weird timing when you had Undead Labs then confirming that State of Decay 2's last update has now been dropped, which is, first of all, I didn't realise it was still being supported. Fair play that they were still working on it, but my God, migrate to State of Decay 3, please. That actually,
I know, and that's what they said. It's like, now we're working on State of Decay 3
full time, and you're like, what have you been doing up to this point? I think that actually is still further out than we think. I would not be surprised if we. I don't. I'm happy to John Lock this. It's not 2025 at all. I think it's 26. I think it could even end up being cross-gen, maybe now. I don't know.
The fact they're still supporting State of Decay 2 suggests maybe it's having enough engagement to warrant that. In which case, State of Decay 3 taking longer, it is kind of fair enough. If there's enough people playing State of Decay 2, it's like Sea of Thieves. It's fair enough that Rare aren't. I'm sure they are working on something, but that we haven't heard what they're working on, because Sea of Thieves is still doing pretty well.
Everwild, supposedly.
Yeah.
Good response, because that's correct.
every time I see an update for State of Decay 2, I just go in case they fix the co-op.
Just on the risky opportunity that they may have actually made it so it was meaningful.
I thought
for you
for
to
the
join
last
a friend.
one, last update, maybe they just
you held out hope right to the end of their support for that game.
It would be good. It
would be great, and I'm hoping that 3 addresses it. That it's just has. I'm not holding my breath on that. Because it's a tricky thing, isn't it? Because you want there to be an element of each player's progression is preserved, but also I think if you're coming into a friend's game, you should be able to plant a flag. You should be able to exist in their world, even though it's not your world and not your story cutscenes. But if you're for instance, if that co-op was functional for us, I would happily have you host the game world. I would be in it, and I'd have my little base that I've built in your game save, and then I could come back to you each time, and then we go out and complete the campaign. I wouldn't need to do it on my own game save. I'd do it all through yours. Why is that so complicated for developers to understand?
I don't see why they can't just let you choose. Like,
give people an option.
If I want to have a standalone save that's just for you and me, I can't play it on my own. If I wanted to go back in on my own, I couldn't do it. It has to be you that plays it with me.
Yeah,
like that's fine. But give people
a choice.
I don't see why they can't even put that option in, because I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that.
Yeah, this would require 2 players to launch this co-op mode.
The same 2 players have to get in a lobby before the game launches.
Because it's
similar to the whole thing. Every time Age of Empires 4 gets an update, I go in to see if they've added in save and resume.
Save and resume. Yeah, I know, because we'd be playing it right now.
It's so frustrating when this stuff happens, and it's like you start playing. It's like, this is great. This is our perfect game, and then you hit something that means, shit, we're not going to play this anymore because there's this feature missing, and that seems pretty basic.
Yep.
And I understand. I think they built it in a way that means that sort of co-op isn't possible. The sort of co-op where you could come back in and retain your own progress, and then leave, and someone else could come in with their own progress. I understand why that might not be possible, but you should be able to come in and resume as we both were playing in that particular
Hmm.
session. Just save the session and then resume in the same from exactly the same point with the same stuff.
Yeah.
I don't see why that's
That
not
would,
possible.
and if it meant that I couldn't then take that character into my own single player game, I had to have a separate save for that. I've no issue with that at all. If I could have a single player
How
save and a co-op save, that's fine. And that co-op save is tied to you. That shared world that I have to join, otherwise I can't play it. I'm fine with that. Absolutely fine
I
with that.
always wonder how many people actually play co-op games like that. Like, oh, I'm going to play with Klingon, and then tomorrow I'm going to play with someone else.
Yeah.
Do people really do that? Because I
Well,
always
there's
I want to play the campaign with the same person.
totally, but there's enough games that support drop in, drop out co-op, which is what a lot of these
Yeah.
titles allow you to do, which is you can just jump into wherever they're at and just pick it up. It's that lack of permanence for me. I want to feel like I've actually made progress in your world and for my character, not just tick off a bunch of mission boxes and get some XP for my
Yeah.
leveling. It's preference,
I
isn't it? It's just preference.
I play these games like a role-playing game. So I want to
Totally.
go back in and carry on the story with the same progression. If you lose the progression, it's like, well, I've just some random, especially the way State of Decay is, where you do kind of get new characters as you go. You just come and you just feel like a random new clone that's just spawned. It's
Yeah,
just
with
crap.
no permanence, no connection to what you've done either. We have that problem with Sea of Thieves, don't we? Like if just we should be able to have a store of the stuff we've gathered, and then the risk is that that gets stolen.
Yeah.
I'd much rather that the high stakes and the role playing elements, I think, than it feeling like it's just all sort of frivolous and meaningless. You could just drop in, drop out whenever. Maybe you'll make some progress with your character, maybe you won't, but you won't affect your friend's world. I want there to be choices that have consequence, and I generally it's why I've got Baldur's Gate 3 waiting in the wings. It's one thing I've never played.
Absolutely.
And it's winking. It's winking at me, I think, for that, especially for that kind of it's my party group. We have to play together. These characters that we've designed will travel together through this story.
Yeah, we're
I
definitely gonna drop in on that at some point soon.
For sure, that could make for a very interesting Burly Bird Live, available on Saturdays at 9:15 p.m. Little segue boy. So, our big topic for tonight. This is the digital versus physical report that Games Industry Biz put out recently. .biz put out recently, and some very interesting data in here. And I wanted to just quickly check in before we dive into this and kind of where things are at, especially in relation to the consoles as well. There was some very interesting data that I saw that Series X now, for instance, is selling slightly more than S, 51 to 49. PS5s are like 81% with a disk drive, which I thought was so interesting. I might be getting that percentage wrong, but it's in the high 80%. For consoles with a disk drive versus just digital. That doesn't mean then players aren't then playing more digital on either platform, but the console hardware definitely included a disc tray proportionally on the PlayStation side. But also just general trends. So before we kind of got into this, I kind of wanted to know your preference. If we kind of take it, you've got sort of Xbox and Switch, so you've got both platforms. Are you, generally speaking, leaning more one way on a platform than another, or is it kind of just I am this across any of my gaming now?
I mean, I'd rather be digital on everything now, but Switch makes it extremely difficult to do that because
Yes,
there's
it does.
crap storage, the prohibitively expensive digital pricing. You can almost always get the games cheaper physical. The problem with physical is you
Always.
lose the cartridges.
Yeah.
They're like a pain in the ass because the boxes are stupid. Just dead space in the boxes.
Just giant with a
I need
tiny
a storage.
little. Yeah,
Yeah, I need a storage solution.
give me
And
the
with the kids,
instructions.
they're always misplacing the cartridges and stuff. So I don't enjoy the physical aspect of the Switch at all. I like having a physical collection of games, and I would be reluctant to, well, for the reason we've seen with the analog 3D, like I wouldn't want to get rid of my physical collection, even of like the few Series X games that I've got. But yeah, Switch, I've got more physical games than digital, but that's not what I would choose to have
That's
if I
interesting that it's sort of the
could.
pricing has necessitated that because I feel exactly the same. I look at those £50, £60. Well, it's £50 actually is standard really. Most Nintendo first party titles are 49.99, but I can pop to Asda, little cheeky 35 quid for a physical copy. Thank you very much. I've bought them pre-owned, which I've done innumerable times with Switch games. So I too, like you, I think I that classic thing we talked about it a few system links ago, where like as much as I love a collector's edition and physical gaming, my actual behavior and choices lean much more towards digital. So I think I would continue to pick and choose physical editions of titles that maybe sort of I would justify spending a little bit more on to have some sort of nice collection to go with it.
Yeah,
But but I think I definitely my preference would be physical. I know that my friend Johnny bought The Last of Us Part Two's collector's edition, but still wanted the convenience of a digital copy. So waited a few months, saved up, and just bought a digital copy later on of the same game because he wanted to have the physical collection, but the convenience of digital. So that I
yeah.
think probably potentially an edge case, but I thought that was interesting too.
I
I think
saw
yeah.
it was being talked about recently, like with the expectation that next gen is going to be all digital,
Mm-hmm.
basically, other than Nintendo, presumably. Um, Maybe with optional disc drives. About the revival, whether Microsoft would revive their kind of the physical game gives you a digital license thing that they were trying to do with Xbox One, that
Yes.
everyone was like, "Oh, don't do this," whereas now it would be like, "Please, if only
Yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
had that," because obviously that would have solved that problem. Um, I would still sometimes if it's like I want a particular game for Christmas or something. If I'm buying it for myself, I will. Well, I don't know. So I'll just look at the price. Even on Series X, I
Mm-hmm.
would just look at the price. If it's like 10, even yeah, just £10 cheaper physical, I'll probably just buy it physical because it's not a
Sure.
massive inconvenience for me. I don't have many games on the go, so it would just sit in the console for
Yeah,
the
it's
time
just
that I'm
ready to go,
interested in
right?
playing it,
And
which
that's
is the same as digital. It's not an inconvenience.
but I find sometimes, and actually shout out to the Xbox Store for this, that sometimes those sales are amazing. The digital sales
Oh,
they have, the
absolutely.
discounts are brilliant. So I will often forego even looking for a physical copy if I can see that there's some crazy discount on something that I want. And then it's just the convenience of being able to go, yep, that's a third cheaper getting it digitally now. It's
Oh,
the Switch is the reverse. On digital, it's always
yeah.
expensive and they never discount their games meaningfully. So you have to go
You
digital in order to afford it.
I think the problem now is like Computer Exchange are going to have priced it as expensive as they possibly can. So it's just in the window where you might think I'm going to go and get it from
Mm-hmm.
Computer Exchange, but realistically, you might as well just buy it digitally. They always just have that pricing down. So it's not like I think it used to be you could go on Computer Exchange and something would be like 20 quid cheaper than anywhere else, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
not how that shop works anymore. Um,
Plug Socket, by the way, in chat just saying, no matter how convenient digital is, long live physical. Getting a game digitally will never hit the same. I think that is fair. I think buying as a gift, I think still, digital or physical, I'd always rather unwrap something. Always, it's nice to
yeah,
receive a digital version of something, but I think I'd always like a Xbox voucher or something. I think I'd always prefer still. It's still nice, but I still prefer that physical unwrap. Um, the little adventure, Plug Socket referred to it as, which is really interesting.
but also like I completely agree. But stuff like say you're really looking forward to Black Ops and you can just go
Mm.
on at like midnight and play it
Well,
digitally.
I've
Pretty
preloaded it, so that's going to unlock and it's there waiting for me. And that's another advantage of Game Pass as a service. PlayStation do that really well. They for their first party pre-orders and stuff. They do a really good job of allowing you to preload the games. I think that's a huge benefit of digital. Um,
yeah. Have you got the
it's
numbers there that were in the report?
yes. Let me pull that up because I want to have
Um,
that on screen. I'll put it up on here
I think
actually.
I know the Xbox. So Xbox is 91% digital now. Last year it was 90%. I don't think that's particularly surprising. For many people, Xbox have been pushing digital harder. And actually, I meant to ask you this: if you're Nintendo, what is the logic for encouraging shops? Well, I guess they're not encouraging them, but why is physical cheaper for Nintendo? Why? Because they get 100% of the digital revenue from their shop if it's a first party game. So
Hmm.
why should you be able to go to Asda and get a first party Nintendo game cheaper
For
when
40 quid.
they have to give a percentage
Hmm.
to Asda? I
It's a
don't
good
get it.
point, and I wonder if maybe they looked at it sort of, because they don't get anything from the pre-owned market either. But it's exposure to the brand, it's advertising for them. There's maybe a core value in that. But we've also shown that it's not them limiting the release of games. It's not limited to physical. They delisted that All Stars collection physically and digitally. I've never heard of anything like it. So I don't know if they are an edge case because they make such wacky decisions and drum up demand by either not printing
Anti-consumer
enough
decisions.
completely,
Not just
not
wacky.
either not printing enough copies and or creating a sort of supply and demand, deliberately restricting something by removing it from sale and saying it's got a finite
Yeah,
window for you to buy
that
it.
I can guarantee you they will be doing that more and more, especially because the pre-owned market will die
Yep.
very very soon. It's almost dead already in the UK. Um, and then they'll have a real stranglehold on kind of they would be able when that happens, I think, to kind of reduce digital prices.
Hmm.
But I can see them doing. Actually, you had it on Xbox for a while. There was like day one edition of a game that was digital. You could buy the day one edition, and then that kind of dropped off the marketplace. And there was
Hmm.
like a not day one, and you look whatever got like horse armor or something with the day one edition that you didn't get
I
with
remember there was a
the
few
next one.
like
But
Rise, Sunset Overdrive, Quantum Break. They all like early Xbox One where they were actually doing well. They voice track, but they had day one editions for those games that then you couldn't buy later on, right? Like it
yeah,
was that
so but
era.
I could see Nintendo doing that with
Hmm.
I don't know. They would have some genuinely compelling thing in there that they would kill after day one
Hmm.
or after like a limited edition thing that you
A
can only
Zelda
get and
collection. It'll be a collection of something, some retro games that people were
yeah,
desperate for
we'll see it
a
again.
Wind Waker on Switch when they finally decide to actually pull their fingers out and release that. Having done it on the Wii U and nobody bought it, they'll do something like that. A game that people are really hungry for. One interesting stat just coming from the gamesindustry.biz article was that for the first 40 weeks of 2024 across Europe, 75% of new games, as in games released this calendar year, were sold as digital downloads versus 25% physical. So newer titles this year were released, proportionally. It's
Yeah,
a 12 percentage point shift over this time last year, where just
which is it. I
63% of games were sold via digital storefronts.
I wonder how much of that is Nintendo software not selling as much this year because presumably there's not been crazy sales of Nintendo stuff.
Mm.
I did see actually there was a the all formats title charts for the year so far. I might just see if I can find that.
Well, also,
Um,
we mentioned Switch. 65% of new third-party games sold on Switch were physical. Again, people bypassing
yeah,
the
it's very
online
specific. Yeah.
infrastructure. So, our big Manny, good evening. Good to see you. Don't worry at all. No, great to see you, man. Thank you for jumping in. Um, so yeah, there's
Yeah, first, you obviously can't see it. 2024 US year to date top 20 games, physical and full game digital. Just looking for the first Nintendo game in there. Um, Hogwarts Legacy is on Switch, is it
Yep.
or not? Yeah, that's number 11.
Wow. Okay.
No first party Nintendo games in the list at all.
Interesting.
Which yeah is yeah, digital sales on Nintendo not included, but obviously not
Yeah.
the figure for Nintendo is 53% digital sales this year. So
Yeah, still proportionally much
still,
higher physical, just especially for third-party games as well. And again, I wonder if that's down to pricing for a lot of people or just preference. It is interesting. It's definitely a conversation that's going to become a lot more prevalent as next gen approaches, where the console makers maybe I think the PS5 Pro is an indication of what they're actually going to do, which is that there's a £100 disk drive add-on if you want it.
well, I think
Yeah.
though, so the PS PlayStation number 75% digital last year, 78% digital this year. 78% is a high percentage, but I do wonder if they've still pushed that a bit early, and they've had a lot of criticism
Mm-hmm.
for having a digital like pro version. And you could say Microsoft are completely within their rights at 91% digital to
Mm-hmm.
just not you can't blame them now if they don't put a disc drive in the next console, at all. That's definitely 100%. Yeah, that we're not getting a disc drive in the next Xbox, but
No, exactly, and that's it opens up a whole conversation about game preservation that, like the analog 3D has sort of wonderfully done. You have to imagine, and I don't know how this would work from a licensing perspective, but if we're talking 20 years from now, an Xbox of sort of, their game preservation has hit a ceiling, and there's certain titles that can't be brought forward, do we see a digital version of those analog consoles for other platforms that allow you to access your library again? How much of it's going to be delisted versus just inaccessible, which are two very different sides of digital preservation. So it's going to be interesting to extrapolate that and see where that's heading.
We saw, was it Crew 2? One of the Crew games was basically being delisted, and they were letting you buy it for like
£2
20p or something.
Yeah,
it was really, really cheap. And Forza Horizon 3 maybe was delisted recently.
I want to say yes, that was recently. I remember 2 being a big deal. 2 was completely taken down.
Because I think mainly because the music and car licenses are always an issue. As long as you can access your digital copy, like I would always be upset if the online servers are shut down. As part of that, I don't know if that happened with Forza Horizon, but yeah, it's going to be a problem. I don't know how much people will be bothered about the trade-in thing, because that was the big issue with Xbox One, is everyone's like, I need to be able to trade in my games. I can't afford to buy games otherwise. I haven't. I guess mainly because I've moved to digital, but even the physical games I've owned that I don't play, I wouldn't trade them in just because the prices you get are so low.
Prices are shit. But then I suppose if we're moving to a digital market, do we see a digital trade-in marketplace emerge?
Well, we talked about that. Yeah, I'd like to see something to that effect, or they do a better job with reward points or something to kind of incentivize you to buy more and spend more and
keep it.
Move on to a new game.
Well, that'll about do it for us tonight for System Link's podcast segment. But we're going to be returning shortly after a brief intermission, playing some more of the finals. I'm going to be diving into the heavy class tonight. Not something I've done particularly very much of, but decided to just mix things up. It's always good to have a class refresh when you're playing a game like that. Thanks again, Mike, for all of your perspective and our discussion tonight. It's always a treat. Plug socket, I'm a heavy weapons guy. Well, that's good to know, because you're going to be watching a lot of it now very shortly as we return with some of the finals. We'll be back shortly, folks. Thanks again. See you soon. And we are back playing the finals. Good evening again, everyone. Let's get a chat open there. Are we working? Yes, we are. Lovely. Right, let's dive in.
Yeah, I don't know what class. I don't know how I'm going to decide.
Ah, no, it's
We'll
tough.
probably only do a couple of rounds, won't we, Matt?
Well, yeah. It's a tough time because, I mean, I've... Historically, if you've played heavy, I've... You know, other than being obsessed with being light, I have been going medium in recent days. I think I will do a round as a medium, but without the healing beam. I'm going to have the dematerializer in there.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll go medium this round.
And then we swap out, maybe? That might not be a bad idea.
Oh, I swap?
Oh, unless you should be able to, shouldn't you?
Not like it.
Oh, no, you're locked in.
Weird.
I thought you could do
They
that.
used to let you.
Yeah.
The kingfish, the steamrollers.
Oh, look at these idiots. Not my chicken.
Heavy light.
I really appreciate your character having a sort of face palm while I'm chasing a chicken, which is great.
In quick cash, it's all about the rush for riches.
With those light.
Have you got the goo gun?
Seal the win.
I haven't.
What's your
No,
ability?
Charge and so on.
Okay.
To be fair, I probably would have gone for Goo Gun, but I was trying to move to medium.
Yeah, no worries. Gone up to the roof. They're already on it.
Two on me.
That light SMG is far too effective.
Yeah.
Oh, too many of them. Oh, I fell down. Caused issues. I didn't mean to ruin your barricade there, by the way.
The kingfish have returned to the arena.
Well, meanwhile, our guys managed to get the box out of here.
Yeah.
Well, we've been mopping up, heading over to B.
Go! Move the cash out B. No surprise here.
Oh, shit.
Shock and awe have started.
He died quickly. We managed to get it in, but they'll already be pinching it.
Impressive steal by the steamrollers.
That's how you play to win this game show.
Pushing in.
Enemy over there.
Oh, there's one on the stairs. Ah, he did me. I made it very difficult for him to get back upstairs, though, which is quite funny. Our guy needs to not die, though. No. What are you doing, you maniac? Shut the door on yourself. Why are you going back in? Oh. I might just spawn. And he inevitably dies.
I thought they were letting you change your specialization as well.
Well, yeah.
In between rounds. I thought they added that.
Oh, I'm just under fire constantly. There's a guy up on the roof. Nice.
Be in 3 minutes before I can use that again.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and blow this to the floor. There's gas on the box.
Yeah. He's in the gap.
Yeah. C4ing, I'll bring him down. One reload. Ah! Oh, that's the longest reload of all time. Look, I'm on an Eastern European bus being kicked by children in the back of my chair. Jonathan, help, the children are crying. I'm on half term, I'm not helping with anything.
You're gonna have too many crying children to deal with in
The
your job.
steamrollers need to stay on track.
Not that.
Target ball 2.
I'm going for the points. As always.
The shock and awe are examining the
I see you.
Ball
Guys incoming.
Setting a barricade. Barricade deployed.
Possibly getting flanked
Come
here,
here.
but I'm not 100%. Yep, I'm getting flanked. Not good, not good. Ah!
The competition.
Tried to shut the door on my troubles there and he blew through the wall.
Rotten luck for the shock and awe. Another team wipe.
Bible thump. Looks like it was. Bible thump. Why are you putting that in the chat? Sounds like a gamer tag. Unless it is one of the gamer tags we're playing with.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Charging back into the arena. Team response now. Cash out in progress thanks to the steamroller.
Must resist urge to RPG our teammate on this
No.
bridge. I'm sure you're feeling the same.
Is that you?
It was. Glad to see we're as slow as each other.
Oh. Let's get on the zip together. That's a good idea.
I think we're going to be sturdy with our heft. Orange guy here's on low health. I'm going to push him. Right. He's gone. Ah! Heavy fire. Just trying to get up to you. Think I can get you?
Oh,
You've got
sorry.
Oh, cheeky. Ah, they popped the gas. Reload. And I misspelled. Shit. No worries.
Look ahead.
Ah, nearly a filthy steal.
The steamroller certainly cranked out a win in this
Well, that'll learn me to play as a heavy
That's
class.
terrible.
stars.
Terrible for both of us.
Honestly. Oh,
I
I'm so
wasn't
annoyed
enjoying
with these
even
guys.
the shotgun. I thought was shit there.
Yeah, yeah. I like the shotgun that's not the semi-auto one, the one that's like a pump shotgun. That one's quite nice, but you've got to be so accurate. And if you're up against a light class and they're dodging, tough time.
Oh, I don't know what to do. I just certainly need to take a moment to consider.
Yes. Especially if we can't swap out during the round, which again, I don't know when they get rid of that, but...
Rob it. Rob Howard.
I try to get away with it.
You know, I've had glitches with one of the medium assault rifles. It used to kind of jam when I was firing it.
Okay.
Like it would just stop firing mid-mag, and that shotgun was doing it. I was firing like 3 or 4 shots, and then it was as if it was out of ammo, and it wasn't. Or as if I needed to reload, and it wasn't. And it was just really weird.
That's no good.
I've never... I must just be doing something wrong. I definitely need the goo gun back.
Just realised I didn't
If
update
I'm,
our Twitch category.
if I'm staying as heavy.
Let's get that done. go. And we're back. Well, I'm gonna swap to medium.
Okay.
But I've got the dematerializer, defib, goo grenade, and data reshaper.
Yeah, let me go. Yeah. I think I must have picked the wrong shotgun, and that was my problem.
So you've got the auto one, I think, and the KS-23 is the one I quite like. It's very slow.
Yeah, I think that is the original one, based on the how far ranked I am with it. That
Okay.
must have been the one I had before. Yeah, and I'll go back to Goo Gun. Oh, Winch Claw is really good fun though.
Yeah.
And then I can winch and shotgun. Let's try Winch Claw.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Right, going. Just to anyone tuning in, welcome to Burly Media's System Link stream. We finished our podcast segment, and we're now diving into some finals. We tend to do both on System Link, not every single week, but we try to combine the two. So we do some podcast discussion, which you'll see from our titles over various different things, including digital versus physical. That was our deep dive tonight. And we are also now playing the finals as our gameplay segment to wrap out this evening. Probably got one more round in us, I think, before we log off. But we're just diving in now with a bit of a class switch up, change out some loadouts. I've gone to medium. I'm going to stick with heavy, though. I quite like the pistols, and I just had a bad round, I think.
Probably a teammate.
It could be the fact that I'm playing with the Mongoose General. There's definitely a factor there. As you'd expect.
You'll be playing Black Ops Day 1.
I'll be playing Black Ops Day 1, and I should be streaming it this Saturday as well on Burly Bird Live. So,
yeah, I'm away on Saturday. I'd love to be doing it, and as tempting as it is to play it on the cloud with you, I don't think I want to do that.
Risky business. I think something like that not built for it. Not right now. You'd have to have some insane internet and a device that's no latency. Controllers plugged in, not Bluetooth. If you've got those controller clips.
I mean, I'm
phones.
relatively shit. So I don't think it would make much difference to me.
Fun. I'd be interesting to try it, I think. But I find that the cloud streaming stuff works when the controller isn't Bluetooth. If it's something I've wired in, that tends to work better, I think, with the cloud stuff. Because it's cutting out one aspect of the latency.
Here we go. The Kingfish. The Shock and Awe. And finally, the Steamrollers.
I love your disapproving
Contestants.
launch emote.
Welcome to Quick Cash. Our contestants will need to gather the cash. If they hit the goal first, they can bask in glory.
That's right, Scotty. This is going to be a nail biter.
I'll be interested to see what sort of review scores Black Ops gets, because it's so hard to judge with the campaign. But all the trailers and stuff have been good, and I think the real life setting generally works better.
Yes,
for
I agree.
the campaign.
And the beta was well received as well. Oh man, what the hell was that?
It's on, Scotty.
Yeah, there were two of them.
Elimination.
It's a test of knowledge from here.
A test they've all been training for. Turns out.
Thank you.
Got no heals for you though. Oh, hi.
I can't deal with that. Shotty.
Reading a passage.
Thought I'd give it a go.
Oh, I love it. I just wish we didn't have to swap out the healing gun.
Intercepted someone on the roof. They're half health. They've dropped down, I think. Oh,
You fell through. If you can seal it,
how do I seal it?
just press it again on that. The left trigger.
Not working. I don't know what to do.
Just kidding.
I can't do it. I think it data reshaped something else.
What a steal.
Oh, left trigger. Gonna sneeze.
Yeah. On your flank.
Terrible time. On the lift. It's no health. Nice shields. Yeah, I know. I don't like it. Yeah, I'm gonna go up as well, I think.
Oh,
I'm gonna go up the lift.
Goo grenade out.
I missed.
Gooing things up.
They're coming up, I think. Yep. One down. There's a guy on the roof. 2 guys on the rooftop opposite. Oh, one's broken through. Oh, he's so nearly dead. He's just dropped down. There's a guy on the bridge now. Coming across to you.
Oh, I missed the shot.
Well done. Well done. Fair play. Oh, you ledge. No way. No! Oh, so close.
I'm not going to have time. I should have reloaded instead of reviving you.
That was good effort, though.
Aggressive steal by the Kingfish.
I'm going to get that now.
No, I know. We did well, I think, to do what we did
Yeah,
there.
yeah. It was quite well defended, though. I think I should have just not revived. Bad choice.
Appreciate it, though. Oh.
Yeah, that's the game, but
Ah. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's directly resulted in us losing this game, but worth it. I don't know where the vault is. It's over there.
go down here on me. Quite near where you are.
Yep, coming to you. One of them's low. One down. Just got my
Oh,
kill.
one on the roof.
Got one. Yeah, I see the guy on the roof. He's half health. Behind you. Got him.
Nice.
I'm feeling the lack of heals.
Yeah, me too.
Moving obstacle. Obstacle back in place.
Ah, let's get the vault.
Yeah. I'm really liking the data reshaper. Not data reshaper, the dematerializer.
Yeah.
So I've worked, it's left and right trigger, so I can do it quite quickly now.
Yeah.
Now I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, especially with the box.
Well, it gives me effectively a destruction option. Oh, behind! There's a fiddler. Got him. I'll get our teammate. They've got the box, they're heading over this way. I've got it. Heading across to B, although there's someone waiting on it. Oh, I should have jumped up. Terrible move. Let me climb up. Let me climb up. I missed. Got it. I'll die. Oh, I did get him. Unbelievable.
Nice.
Goo grenade set. Throwing goo grenade.
I've created a bit of a death box in here. I don't know how secure this is going to be.
Looks alright.
Obstacle removed. Unhacking.
I do like that it takes up one of your dematerializer slots when you rebuild the wall again. So you can't just turn it on and off constantly, which I really like.
What the fuck? Oh, it's fucking turrets.
Gooing things up. Goo grenade set.
It's not going to take them much to blow through here, I don't think. I can hear them above me. Just holding position for the time being.
This game show event. What a spectacle!
Doing some more covering here, really.
Doing things up.
God, there's a few hand grenades.
So far, so good. They blow through the ceiling, I'm going to be in real trouble.
The Kingfish suffered a wipeout.
They just couldn't swim away from that one.
Moving, follow me. Rematerializing. Goo
Oh, they're de-gooed everywhere. Yeah, got it. Our teammates under fire. I think they're above.
The steamrollers are unloading Vault 3.
I can hear them. Heading over to you now.
That pumpkin guy is so annoying.
Yeah, I know. He's made himself a target for me, though.
Yeah.
The steamrollers swooped up a cash box.
Oh, I got my 6. So I just used the dematerializer to blow open the floor underneath them, and they fell down, which I really like. There's a guy on the roof on my tag. He's by your barricade. He's low health. Pushing him now.
I'm not really with it.
That's right. Another one on the zip. One down. Oh, taking fire from up top. I've got the box. The vault, whatever the hell it's called.
Bet the sponsors are impressed with the play so far.
Viewers, don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss a second.
It's gonna be risky business.
Yeah, he's chasing you, but I'm with you.
Nice. I'm not gonna take it to C. Too exposed, it's too near it. Heading across to D.
Guy right behind you. Oh no, he's run off because he's on low health. Right.
Thank you for the interference, though.
Oh, you've only died once. That's insane.
I've had a bottle so far.
The steamrollers have commenced a cash out.
That gun is so cool now. They lit the sights on it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That was. I promise that was an accident.
I know.
You know I would claim that if I was being shitty. I'll come up to you. It is a death box in here.
The shock and awe find themselves on the receiving end of a wipeout again.
Yeah, coming in.
Nice!
Pumpkin guys are around. Quite low health.
I'm gonna head upstairs to you. Our guy's in there. 2 guys on the roof. 2 pinks and an orange.
Reloading.
You've done really well to defend here. Ah, cheeky bastards.
Defend on B.
Oh, unlucky.
With an equal cash score for all teams.
See,
I can't wait to see
the RPG nerf is so frustrating.
Yeah, I know.
I used it a long time ago, and using it against goo seems like a really legitimate use.
Yeah, agreed.
You know, not killing people.
It should do high splash damage against the environmental stuff, shouldn't it?
Yeah. I'd be happy if it did no damage to people and you just use it against
The
goo and
Kingfish are trying to rule the waters,
the environment.
unlocking Vault 4.
and had a few more of them.
Yeah, agree.
That's where I needed my charge and slam.
All the lights are down. Oh, shit. Got him. I've got pumpkin heads on me. Yes!
Didn't get him, he couldn't hit him once.
Oh, what? Looked like you blew his biscuits off.
I know.
They're floundering, Scotty.
I want to try and get it to A if we can. It's the closest one. Ah, fuckers. Spawning now. I'm on the other side of Shadow Picard.
Things could get out of hand if they meet the steel
Yeah, they've got to A.
again.
Oh, I've got. I was just changing my gun. No, I can't.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. Yeah, it's probably a rash decision to change.
I've sabotaged you. Let's really put this thing to good use. Roof sealed. Got it.
Oh, stop bunny hopping! For fuck's sake.
Oh, I'm in trouble here, lads. Let's see if I can get to you, shall we?
I'll just come back.
Okay.
I needed to change my gun.
Yeah. Woo! That's me out. Man, that was tough. Nice.
Be so much more careful with them though, because it's such a waste. I get double teamed.
Where am I?
We still have 30 seconds remaining.
They're taking it.
Concentration is key in these final moments.
Music's wibbling.
Yeah.
Try and get it through the floor if I can. Ah!
She had such a good round there. Sorry we let you down.
No, it's all good. It's nice to have some elims. Not always a given when playing this game. It's a shame the one aspect of my team play was I got 0 assists. That doesn't feel good. I'm getting gold everywhere else, being the MVP.
Wow.
But am I a true team player? Is what I know you're gonna say.
I'm not. I can't really argue with those stats.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. This latest episode of System Link. We'll be back on Saturday. Well, I certainly will. With some Burly Bird live. Mike away for the weekend. Are we back next week, Mike? For System Link? I forget if we're...
TBC, possibly.
To be
Hopefully.
confirmed. But yeah, no probs. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Appreciate the support. Nice to see you all in chat again. And we will see you next time.
See ya.